My name's Justin LeClue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And it has been much requested that we deal with a filmmaker from the country of Australia. So we're finally doing it and talking about Yahoo Serious.
God, isn't it great to not be accountable to anyone?
Yes.
Like, there are no investors over our shoulders, no bureaucrats, no heads of large corporations who are like demanding a business plan from us, like who are saying, what's the audience for the Yahoo Serious episode?
I mean, really, the only reason we did it was, wouldn't it be funny if after Wim Wenders we did a Yahoo Serious episode?
Well, Justin has had Yahoo Serious in his back pocket for 2 years now.
Yes.
Like it keeps coming up as a potential one, and I guess I just kept vetoing it. But after Wim Wenders, yeah, I was eager to dive into Yahoo Serious.
Well, the thing about Yahoo Serious is he is principally known today as a joke in The Simpsons. You've all seen it. The episode where they go to Australia, there's a slideshow that's shown about Australia fever, and there's a boarded up movie theater that says Yahoo Serious Film Festival. And doesn't Lisa have a joke where she's like, I know those words, but that sign makes no sense. Now, let's deconstruct this joke. Does she know Yahoo Serious? Is she surprised that there's a film festival of his films? Because when this episode came out, there was only 2 of them.
Yeah, wow, God. and now there are 3.
That's right.
Well, this is actually what really sold me on this topic, because if you know Yahoo Serious, you probably know him for his debut film, Young Einstein.
Or if you're like me and Will, you know it only from the VHS cover of Young Einstein that you'd always catch in the video store and be like, what's that? That looks wacky.
With his hair. And when I was a kid, when I was under the age of 10, I saw his second film, Reckless Kelly, on VHS. And then there was a third called Mr. Accident that went direct to video in 2000 or 2001. And those are all 3 films that he made.
This is what's fascinating about Yahoo Serious. Beyond just being like, oh, isn't he like an Australian novelty? Yes, but he is one of the rare comedians who starred, acted, produced, directed their films, and did nothing else. Like, there was no Yahoo Serious fever in the sense, like, he wasn't guesting on Saturday Night Live or appearing in bit roles in other comedies. Nope, he just did it his own way and did nothing else.
And he's also interesting. I also wanted to delve into him a little bit because Crocodile Dundee was obviously a global phenomenon in 1986. It was massive all over the world, and it created this Australia fever in the United States, which is interesting.
Now, I went back trying to figure out, like, what is the seed of this? Some people pointed out, like, The Thornbirds was really big as a novel. Then it was adapted into a TV miniseries, and that takes place in Australia. There was a lot of Australian bands as well. But there wasn't that one thing other than Mr. Paul Hogan himself.
Well, I think Crocodile Dundee as a movie, there was something about it that really struck a chord in the United States where, like, so much of it was, you know, he comes from the outback. He's, you know, a little bit primitive, but actually he's more real. Mm-hmm. You know, he's real and he's unaffected.
And he wants to sell you some cigarettes. Just in case you didn't know, Mr. Paul Hogan's character of the Crocodile Dundee, is that his name?
Well, his name is Mick Dundee. But,
that's right.
But he wrestled a crocodile, you'll recall.
So they call him Crocodile Dundee. Started just like Ernest, shilling for things. In Hogan's case, cigarettes.
But in that first, in all the Crocodile Dundee movies, it's always...
We're all laughing.
He's always going around and it's like, oh, yeah, we're selling frappuccinos and we're all yuppies and it's the Reagan Revolution.
So he was the OG Tim Allen. The manly man.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what he was. And there are so many scenes where it's like he'll see a drag queen or something and be like, oh, that bloke looks like a Sheila or, you know, whatever. He was kind of a reactionary character, right? He was kind of like, well, he may be primitive, but he's commonsensical and he's...
Common Sense by Paul Hogan.
Yeah, basically. And I think that was probably like key to Australia fever. It was almost like, can't we go back to the Outback? Can't we get back to some of those down-home values?
Now come on down at the Outback Steakhouse, a restaurant chain that was created by not Australians.
It was, you know, Australia fever was massive, I guess, for a couple weeks, you know. Put another shrimp on the Barbie.
Dingo ate my baby.
Yeah. Well, there was that Cheech Marin movie, Shrimp on the Barbie.
I don't think that's what caused Australia fever.
Which was another piece of Crocodile Dundee exploitation. And then in 1988, Young Einstein comes out. Now, Yahoo Serious, I mean, he's fascinating because he's sort of like Gabbo. And he's also kind of like Poochie.
Yes.
You know?
And also Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, all the greats.
Well, yes, and we can talk about that in a moment too. But You did a little bit more research into him than I did. I read the Wikipedia page, and I'm baffled by it because it says in his early 20s, he did some, he studied filmmaking. He made a documentary about coal miners or something like that, which I have seen no evidence that it exists.
So this is the thing about Yahoo Serious is there is almost no information about him online. Like, for someone that was popular enough in Australia that he appeared at the Australian Olympic Games.
As a special guest.
Yes. There is nothing on there. Basically, all the info you'll find about him and images related to him are on his own website that looks like it was created on GeoCities in the early 2000s.
So in his early 20s, he, made some documentary.
Yeah,
he did some
Coal
study.
Town.
Okay, and then cut to he's 35. He's 35. He makes Young Einstein, stars in it, writes it, directs it, gets a massive global push from Warner Brothers. He's the next big thing.
Now, Young Einstein took like 3 to 5 years to finish. It took a long time to get done.
Okay, so how did he do it?
Well, according to few sources that I have, he just literally pushed through. When something takes that long and you're concentrating on it that long, eventually you'll reach a certain point, and he must have struck that Warner Brothers deal when Australian Fever was at its height. And they were looking around and going, what do we have that's Australian? And this movie that's been floating around for 3 to 4 years that hasn't been quite done yet, they're like, all right, let's do this. Let's push it hard, almost double the budget of the actual film in North America and get it out there. Let's also pack the film with Australian songs that Warner Brothers owns, of course.
So it came out in 1988, the year of Crocodile Dundee 2. And I guess he was sold as, this is the next Paul Hogan.
Yeah.
And the plot of the movie is, what if, you've all heard of Albert Einstein. Well, what if Albert Einstein was actually born in Tasmania and he created the theory of relativity when he was trying to figure out how to add bubbles to beer?
So like it's a magic realism kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's like Picnic at Hanging Rock.
And how would you describe Yahoo Serious's presence or even comedic stylings?
Well, this is where the Poochie comparison comes in. Like Paul Hogan, he's kind of a lived-in kind of character. He's has a little bit
recognizable.
He has a leathery texture to him. He doesn't work too hard. He's kind of laid back. I would say this guy works hard.
Do you think he works hard? He's got a kind of like dry, like almost non-reactive in Yahoo Serious.
But he's so wacky.
He looks wacky. That's why he looks crazy on the poster with his hair he's playing the electric guitar. Also, Albert Einstein in this universe invented rock and roll.
Oh, okay. That is important. He has two big inventions. One of them is the theory of relativity. The other is rock and roll.
And like all of Yahoo Serious's films, which we should point out again, he wrote, directed, produced. I think he's co-editor on it. It even said like music. This is a Jerry Lewis, if there ever was one.
A total filmmaker.
Yes. It is a very laissez-faire movie. Like, it's not moving at a fast clip.
Oh, it's slack is what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I said many times talking about it, it's very Jacques Tetsy-esque.
I don't know, man.
Especially early on, the way that he frames stuff, where there's always like little gags in the corners, where there's like a kangaroo or a Tasmanian devil in one of the scenes.
I had a hard time kind of getting a handle on this movie, Young Einstein, just tonally.
Now, this film was popular in its native Australia, so it's not only tied to Australian fever.
And it was moderately successful in the United States. I think it made like 25 million or something like that.
Did I laugh watching this movie? I don't think I did.
I don't think I laughed a single time, but I'm not completely dismissing it. It's strange.
It is. It's definitely individualistic. This is not the kind of film that like an SNL actor would have been cast in, because it wouldn't have felt like this one does.
I'll just give people a little bit more understanding of what Young Einstein is. So it starts, he's in, the wilderness of Tasmania. He's created this formula. He says, Mom, Dad, I'm going to the big city. And he goes to the big city. On the train, he meets Mary Curie. Okay, he meets Mary Curie. She's his love interest. Various other historical figures drift in and out. Sigmund Freud is in it, for example.
Darwin. We all love Darwin.
It climaxes at the Science Academy Awards, where all of these characters are. So in this movie's alternate reality, all these people are hovering around Australia. There's a big montage scene where he's on his way to the big city and he's like hanging out with kangaroos and he's, hanging out with bushmen. Like there's stuff in here where you can tell they were like, okay, we got to Aussie this up for maximum global exposure.
Now,
we got to put kangaroos in here.
I did read that the way the film was made is that like he shot it independently. He didn't finish it. He got funding from a company who gave him $2 million based on a trailer reel. He gave them a finished film. They said, this is not what we paid for. And then they got more money from Warner Brothers to reshoot another hour. And that's what I feel is like kangaroos, Tasmanian devils. Give us all the stuff that's Australian. That's what we want to sell it on.
So the movie is slack. It's kind of slow paced at times, but it is very wacky. The gags are very Jerry Lewis.
Yes, they are.
In that they're like jarringly cartoonish.
And again, they're slow. It feels like, especially during the period that it came out, this should have a Naked Gun like rhythm to it, but it does not.
Instead, a very cartoonish gag will happen, and the movie will just pause and linger on it, the way that Jerry Lewis does often, you know?
And I read some people say that like it was popular in Australia because it was representative of something that they did not have at that point. And Australia had a very strong genre film industry. They made a bunch of comedies. Who could forget all those stork sex comedies that were coming out in the 70s?
Oh, sure. The return of Captain Invincible.
Yes, that's right. But this was, at the time, I guess the late 80s, an earnest figure that Australia could call their own.
Okay.
That did all the obvious jokes. Like, if you wanted to make a textbook of jokes you cannot make anymore, they're all in Young Einstein. Do we get a drop the soap joke in prison? Yes. Do we get an out of nowhere mocking the Chinese joke?
Well, the blackface gag that is sort of...
Two blackface gags.
I mean, the second one, though.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, boy. And you'll try to talk yourself out of it when you watch it. You're like, oh, he's just black because, you know, something exploded. And then the next shot, you're like, nope, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. So the movie's wacky, it's strange, it's not funny, but there's often something very bizarre to look at. And I don't know, I thought the whole premise just in general was
lame,
was bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I can't just completely dismiss this movie.
I mean,
because it's bad.
You can't dismiss it because it's weird and it's from an auteur, like undeniably.
Yeah, I guess so.
And
it doesn't work right, but it works wrong in a way that I'm not used to seeing.
It's a cracking up, if you will.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
This is a film you would expect from a late period comedian who has been doing this for a while.
It is actually. It's like a Jerry Lewis movie, but it's like a late Jerry Lewis movie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you guys know me, so I don't need to, work that hard for it, right?
Yeah. Can we just say before going ahead, like, he does a lot of singing in this movie. He does a lot of rocking out, and it's clear you're supposed to find this guy kind of cute.
Well, especially in the last 5 minutes where it feels like he realized, all right, I'm a cool guy and I want people to think I'm cool. So I will communicate that by having people keep telling me I'm cool.
Actually, so I compared him to Poochie, but actually I think as a comedy star, he's a little bit more like the Homer, which is the car that Homer makes, where like it's sort of designed in such a way that like it's got so many cool elements, but smashed together, it makes no sense. So you've got this guy who he's really wacky. He's a physical comedian. He does big, broad physical shtick. He's got crazy carrot top hair, but he's also cute. You're also supposed to find him attractive. He's supposed to be cool, and he rocks out on a guitar. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't all fit together. It's too many disparate elements.
Well, I think that cool thing is important because that's what he latches onto for his next film.
And also, his next film, Reckless Kelly, came out in 1993. That's a 5-year gap.
Now, I've seen like very quick interviews with him where he talks about that after the success of Young Einstein, he was just not ready for what that success brought. And you get the sense he kind of froze after that. But anybody else would probably use this opportunity to do as many things as possible. But I can't find any information about this, like what he decided to do after that.
Well, what I'd really like to know is, like, after 5 years off, did he just like stroll into Warner Brothers and they were like, oh, Yahoo, yes, please write this way. Let's make another movie.
Or was Reckless Kelly also like independently funded and distributed by Warner Brothers?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that after the kind of modest success of Young Einstein, he could just take 5 years off and then roll back in with another Yahoo Serious movie.
I don't think that Young Einstein had enough success to be like, all right, do whatever you want in North America. Like Roger Ebert gave it 1 star. Like people were not very impressed by it.
It made $25 million.
Yes.
Which, let's say that's like $60 million in today's money.
Yeah, on a $5 million
Not
budget.
bad.
Oh, but also $10 million in advertising because they really pushed this one hard. That wacky hair is not going to sell itself.
Anyway, Reckless Kelly, I mean, this is a more normal movie than Young Einstein is, although it does still have...
pretty wacky.
It's pretty wacky.
Yeah.
But it has more of a conventional story.
There's goals in this movie as opposed to Young Einstein, which is much more...
Off the wall.
Yeah. In this movie, I want to say much older. It's only 5 years, but like he's in his 40s by this point.
Well, so in this movie, he plays Ned Kelly, a descendant, I think the grandson of the actual Ned Kelly, who was a historic Australian Robin Hood type figure, bank robber, a folk hero. And in this one, he's carrying on his grandfather's legacy. He's still robbing banks. He's sort of just accepted as a ruffian.
You know what I'm going to say? This one did make me laugh. There were some jokes where I chuckled watching this.
Oh, man, I don't know. I really didn't care for this one at all.
At the beginning, where he robs the ATM machine, that was funny. He shoots flies out of the air, shoots guns out of everybody's hands. I like all that shtick.
Okay, I really did not care for this movie. So there's the evil banker, played by Hugo Weaving, and he's going to foreclose on Reckless Island, which is the beautiful, unspoiled Australian island, just off the coast, basically, attached. It's attached to the mainland, but it protrudes. So basically, it's like the evil developer's plot. Yahoo Serious, as Ned Kelly, has to raise, $1 million to stop Hugo Weaving from foreclosing. So he decides to travel to America, as if...
Well, so the reason he travels to America is that as part of the Ned Kelly gang, every dollar that they steal has to be donated to the poor. And to get $1 million, I guess they decide that, well, if we rob somewhere else, it doesn't count, so we can then take that money for ourselves.
Well, what clearly happened was some executive at Warner Brothers said, hey, can we get you to come to America?
Yes.
And then he said, okay, that sounds good. So he gets to America.
Please, I'm starving. It's been 5 years.
He gets to America and he immediately gets a job. I mean, he's so cool. He's doing cool stuff with his gun. He impresses everyone.
Is, the mature Yahoo Serious. His hair's not all up in the air. It's slick back.
It's wavy.
Yeah.
It's as much hair as before, but just combed in a different way. And he gets hired by this B movie studio. John Pinette is in this movie playing a sort of like Roger Corman, Charles Band like B movie producer. Really a Jim Wynorski type.
Yes.
And
I mean, Jim Wynorski would probably watch these scenes and go, boy, I wish I ever had that budget or crew.
So he hires him to star in this movie that he's making called The Christian Cowboy.
Okay. So once he gets to Hollywood, this movie just completely dies for me. Like, there's nothing here.
Well, it just makes no sense. So he hires this guy to star in his B movie, like
Which is set in Las Vegas for what?
And he plays a Christian cowboy. Well, I don't know what this is satirizing. I don't know what the parody is supposed to be. But what's even more confusing is apparently midway through filming, like, Yahoo Serious is already a famous movie star.
Oh, people can't wait to get his autograph.
People are getting his autograph. Like, the press is hounding him. And it's just been established that he's actually making a direct-to-video B movie.
And Yahoo Serious also cast someone that he met at one of the banks he was robbing, who's his co-star, even though she's not an actor.
Oh my God, it's dreamlike, the logic of this film.
Lynchian, if you will.
But not dreamlike enough.
No.
Because there are still too many of those just shit Hollywood comedy beats.
It's also, like Young Einstein, pretty slow paced.
Yes.
Like, the gags aren't really coming fast because they're so good that you need to build up to them, Will.
But why else did I find this movie repellent? Frankly, it was Yahoo himself.
No!
I think Yahoo Serious is in his bodybuilder Joe Piscopo era.
His dead heat period.
In this movie. He is supposed to be so cool. He's supposed to be so handsome. You're supposed to think this guy is the coolest guy ever, and he's Yahoo Serious.
He needed like 4 more Young Einstein type characters before he could move to this.
Yeah, he's not wacky enough.
No, he's not. Well, he's not even that wacky in Young Einstein.
Yeah.
Like, he looks wacky, but he doesn't act wacky. Like, Young Einstein is a pre-Jim Carrey film, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's the character he needs to be, but that's not who he's playing.
Reckless Kelly, he actually, a better comparison, he's in his Beverly Hills Cop 2 era.
Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yeah.
Where Eddie Murphy said, Axel Foley, don't joke no more.
I mean,
oh boy.
You're supposed to find Kelly a heartthrob, and I'm sorry.
There's still jokes. But so many shots as well of him just riding his motorcycle like a cool guy.
Oh my
Real
God.
Vanilla Ice vibes.
Yes. So I did find this movie repellent, and I didn't find it funny, and to me, it was just a total whiff. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Yahoo, if you're listening.
So after this, Yahoo, he battens down the hatches. He needs to make that crystal diamond.
Okay. Like, the Kubrickian pace at which he made movies is hilarious to me because that's 1993. He doesn't make another movie till 2000.
Now,
His final film to date.
for most people, Reckless Kelly would be the last film, I feel. Like, it probably didn't make that much money in the North American box office, even though I do remember that box art as well.
Well, I remember the box art for this next one,
Oh, yeah.
which went direct to video in the United States and Canada.
It was supposed to be released theatrically.
It was.
Then they watched it.
And it's Mr. Accident, his third and final film. I wouldn't say I like it better than Young Einstein, but I did laugh more.
Well, me and Will watched it together, and there were some moments we were in tears. Not necessarily by what was happening, but by whatever MST3K like quip we said right after.
I would say that this movie's got 1,000 jokes in it, and maybe 5 or 6 of them land.
Yeah, it's almost as if he took our notes of this podcast we're doing right now and said, all right, I'm going to give you the wackiest Yahoo serious.
Oh my God. So this is a post-Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, obviously.
Watching this movie made me consider that it's hard to overstate Jim Carrey's influence on American film, global film comedy at this time, because like in the 90s, he was the Ace Ventura: Pet Detective set the tone for like the wacky guy comedy, which is a guy who's wacky comes into a room and is wacky in the room and then he leaves.
Yes.
Just a variety, there are so many movies like that, like Corky Romano or I don't know.
I'm trying to think
Freddie
of
Got Fingered
non-Corky Romano movies. That's all that takes up my mind.
Rocket Man with Harlan Williams.
Oh, boy. Oh, wait. Did I tell you that I saw Harlan Williams on the subway?
Holy shit.
Oh, I may have taken a little photo of it.
Did you tell him what a fan you are?
No, because he was like, you! And he like jumps at me. And I wasn't sure. Like, you're never sure if it's a celebrity, especially one like Harlan Williams. But like, I showed it to people, they're like, that's definitely Harlan Williams. And he's a Toronto guy, so he'd probably be around here as well. Wow. And he was writing notes, I assume, jokes.
Rocket Man 2.
Yeah. Coming to Crackle soon. So anyway, that's my brush with fame in the last year.
God, I'm so jealous. Well, anyway, Mr. Accident. How can I describe the plot of this film? How can anyone describe the plot of this film?
Well, listen, Yahoo Serious, he's a little bit clumsy, if you know what I mean.
Well, he's Mr. Accident.
Yes. So if the movie starts, just let Yahoo loose in his apartment. He's lighting stuff on fire. He's turning his vacuum into a flamethrower.
The toaster electrocutes him, just as any accident that can happen to a man in his home.
A living hell.
Yeah.
Like watching it. Like, you would not want to be trapped in this situation.
Now, he works at an egg factory. I mean, an egg factory, folks. Can you imagine some of the shenanigans that an accident-prone man...
And he's a repairman, but he's Mr. Accident. Like the other two Yahoo Serious films, very free-flowing. And I got the sense watching this, I feel the rough cut of this was 2.5 hours long.
Oh, yes.
Because, like, scenes end so abruptly.
It feels like a movie that definitely had a lot of post-production sweetening. Like,
Yes.
a ton of, like, okay, get this scene, cut frames here, make it faster, make it faster, make it faster. Put in a reaction shot from the dog. Yeah, a lot of that.
And I will say, though, I have to applaud, he does go for it in a lot of scenes, as unstructured and sketchy as it is.
Well, the scene where, like, he gets spun around.
Yes, that's right at the beginning. There's a pretty ambitious sequence where he's running down the stairs and a bunch of garbage is following him, like an avalanche.
Like Buster Keaton. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That scene was kind of funny.
Yeah,
it was a good idea for a scene.
Yeah, it's like the timing is a little off. Maybe the performance is not there, but at least the idea is there, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of very silly stuff in this movie beyond the other two films, like they're driving in a car and they're all frozen and they can't see, and then they crash the car and it lands in slow motion, but they survive. The airbags go off.
Or there's a scene where his car is all wrecked and the gas is leaking and he throws a cigarette out the window, and as he's driving along the street, like, this fiery gas keeps following him and following him and following him. It's big, ambitious visual gags like that.
Yeah, so when it's that and the gag can, like, move a little bit, if I did not laugh, I appreciated it. But then you have a gag of, like, him on a construction site, and he just gets, like, his head gets magnetized, so it goes up in the air. That's not really a gag in the sense that, like, where is the kind of twist in that?
It's
to
a
get the
setup.
laugh? Yeah.
It's just a setup.
But there's no punchlines.
I mean, the one scene of this movie
oh, man.
that really
So good.
that really made me laugh was the climactic scene when he's in his apartment and he's fighting with that guy with the axe. And just the guy falls out and he falls down like 10 stories and just lands in a fucking pile of blood. Sorry, I'm making no sense, folks.
No, he doesn't land in a pile of blood. his body hits the ground and compresses like an accordion. This is nightmare fuel for children who would watch it. This is not a film for children either. Yahoo Serious, his main character point in this, or character evolution, is he gets addicted to cigarettes, so he's smoking all the time in the movie.
Oh yeah, the plot involves an evil man takes over the egg factory and puts nicotine in the eggs so that it becomes addictive.
Yes. This does not come up until the last 5 minutes of the movie, so...
Oh yeah, we go a long time without any plot. It's mostly just hanging out with Mr. Accident and his various...
what about that great scene in the Egyptian-themed restaurant where it starts on a pot that says, like,
1,000-year-old vase.
Yes, I hope nothing happens to this vase.
I'm sorry, do not let Mr. Accident in a room with a 1,000-year-old vase. So Mr. Accident and his date are sitting at a table, just spilling stuff, just like,
lighting on fire.
I'm sorry, do not give them.
Mr. Accident eats a cork.
Oh yeah, that's funny. And then you're thinking, okay, well, when does the vase get broken? Well, apparently the vase is just sitting there on display without any glass around it in the middle of a restaurant.
Yes.
And I think that's on the restaurant.
Yes, I agree. It's not Mr. Accident's fault at all.
But let's talk about Yahoo Serious in this movie. Not funny.
Yeah, what is funny, he's a little
clumsy.
No, he's a little too old for this role.
Yeah. Well, he's 47.
Yeah, and he says stuff like, I've never been in love before. And it's like, you're 47 years old, man. Like...
And he looks more like Carrot Top than he ever has before.
Anytime he runs, he looks exactly like Carrot Top.
You can tell that, like, Reckless Kelly is a while ago at this point, because in Reckless Kelly, he's still, the glow of young Einstein is still on him a bit. He's like, okay, I'm cool, I'm hot. And in this one, he's kind of getting back to, I got wacky hair. I got wacky hair.
Not wacky enough. It's not up in the air. He can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
This is a movie that it seems to be wanting to deliver something that he never did, but like people thought that he had. Like when you see young Einstein as a kid, you probably loved it because you had no frame of reference for anything else. You're like, I like this just as much as I like Looney Tunes. It's on the same level. I have no critical faculties.
I'm concerned that one or two people will listen to this and say, oh, but I love young Einstein. I watched it when I was a kid.
Yeah, but you can love young Einstein. That's fine. You think we'll get as much like anger as the Mrs. Doubtfire reaction?
When we did an episode on Robin Williams, a lot of people didn't like that.
No. Yeah. That we said that Mrs. Doubtfire, not a very good movie. I'm lighting the fire again, Will.
Sorry, folks. Just watch it. Yeah. So that's it. Mr. Accident sounded the death knell for his career. And I just want to emphasize again, he was in no other movies.
Nothing.
No supporting roles.
He did have an MTV show, but there's only one 2.5-minute clip I could find and no reference to it. It's not even on his IMDb. Like, it doesn't say, like, self MTV show. So I don't know how long it lasted. Was it just one segment? Like, Yahoo Serious has been memory hole from the internet. Could he have done that himself? Could he have, like, scraped all the information about him from the net?
I mean, I wonder, because I assume that, like, when he came onto the international scene, there were surely articles about him everywhere. Mm-hmm. There was surely a big push.
He was on the cover of Times Australia. Like, he's right there. Yahoo Serious.
I mean, he's a man of mystery. I mean, you showed me a Q&A he did not too long ago. That was his first public appearance in like 10 years.
Now, supposedly he went through like a rough divorce. I don't have any of this personal information. If you search Yahoo Serious, the newest article that will come up is a very sad one, which is that he got evicted from his home because he couldn't pay rent.
Wow.
And lawyers argued for him that it was because he was hurt by the COVID pandemic, and so they weren't working on movies.
They were just finally about to make another Yahoo Serious movie.
Young Einstein returns, and the COVID pandemic hit. It just didn't happen.
So I read an old Dave Kerr review of Young Einstein.
Wow.
He gave it 3 stars.
Okay.
And he was making the case. He kind of liked it. He said its ambition exceeds its grasp, but he liked it on the grounds of, in the 80s, most comedy was verbal. It was, Albert Brooks, Woody Allen. I don't know who else was popular at that time. The SNL people like Chevy Chase. You didn't have like big, broad slapstick. You didn't have huge physical comedy. That kind of went out after Jerry Lewis. There was a lineage of physical comedians like Chaplin, Keaton, Jerry Lewis. And then, as Kerr noted, the only people in the world who were really doing it was Jackie Chan. Mm-hmm. Dave Kerr was cognizant of Jackie Chan before many people were. And so he sort of appreciated young Einstein for trying to bring that back. And I suppose, just to give Yahoo Serious something to end on, I do admire the ambition of some of these movies. I admire that he was really going for a sort of surrealistic, off the wall, truly wacky physical comedy thing.
But does it work?
No.
So as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. So our first letter is from John Taflin. He goes, "Thanks for the great show. And is Quebec cinema really more than Xavier Dolan? Xavier Dolan, the Yahoo Serious of Quebec."
I mean, I think Quebec cinema is a lot more than Xavier Dolan.
But the letter continues. "Hey, fellas. Thanks for the fantastic podcast. I have you two to thank for recommending the 8-Diagram Pole Fighter and Duel to the Death. I love them both."
Nice.
Justin touched briefly on an old episode about Quebec's film industry being entirely its own thing, essentially separate from the rest of Canadian film industry. While that definitely makes sense given Quebec's general opinion of itself as a separate nation entirely inside of the Great White North, no judgment here, I was curious what Quebecois cinema is like. Certainly has to be more than Xavier Dolan and Bon Cop, Bad Cop. Did we do an episode on Quebec cinema? I feel like we did.
We did. We talked about Bingo and Les Boys and another movie.
My wife and I are performing artists who are seriously considering a move from the States with our young child to Montreal, and we love getting to know places through the art they make, and which we might be able to participate in making someday too. I mean, Quebec cinema is probably like the main, like when you're talking about like artistic impact in Canada, Quebec has almost all the films that they made because they had an industry that supported itself and had, most importantly, which you don't really get in Canada that much, filmmakers who can continue to make films.
I'm interested in, I just got that Blu-ray set that a Vinegar Syndrome partner label called Canadian International Pictures put out, The Other French New Wave, that has several like classic Quebecois movies from the 60s in it. I'm interested in watching some of those.
Well, that one has a film by Gilles Carle on it, who I've always wanted to do for this podcast, but I need to get Will in the right mood because I know Will does not know that filmmaker at all. So you'd have to go in like completely, all right, what movies do I watch? What are the good ones?
I believe I could get in that mood. I'm interested.
He made some really like provocative movies as well as like very Terry Gilliam-esque ones. His films always appear on the Canadian Top 100, but you don't usually hear him in conversation very much. But yeah, Quebec cinema, amazing. Moving to Montreal, very nice place. Never lived there. Seems nice though. So, I mean, it's better than the United States, right, Will?
I like visiting Montreal.
Yeah, I like visiting Montreal as well. But we need to get into Quebec filmmakers again. It's something that I don't think we've done one since.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Again, it's because that while they may be popular in Quebec, they don't really have that much, play, even in English-speaking Canada. Go to the library, though. Usually they have all those movies on DVD. So thank you very much for that letter. And our next letter is from Lula Asplund. She goes, "Hey there. Thanks for the wonderful podcast. Me and my boyfriend Kyle are huge fans. It would make his year if you gave him a birthday shout-out. All right, we're doing it once, just for you.
You hear that, folks? We will never do this again."
Okay, well, that's not 100. If you get on your hands and knees and you're like, please, here's $1,000. We do it for.
We'll do it for $1,000. Yeah.
He is a longtime Patreon supporter. He may have already given us $1,000.
Okay.
And December 9th is his big birthday. Some of his faves are the films of Tartakovsky, the Three Colors trilogy, David Cronenberg, Shrek, and he is always trying to watch Matt Farley as per your recommendation. Trying to watch. Are you watching them, Kyle? You better be watching them and loving them. How come you didn't talk about Shrek Retold in the Shrek episode? Have you checked it out? What do you think? Here is a link. I think we talked about it in the Shrek, the feature films only.
We watched Scared Shrekless.
That's right. We watched Scared Shrekless.
But listen, 4 Shrek feature films in one day. That was a lot, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle, for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kyle.
You're 30 now, your life's behind you, so just do what your passions are, because you have nothing else that you need to live up to.
You have nothing to lose.
That's right. So thank you very much for your letters, everybody. You can send us at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. This week on our Patreon, Will, what are we talking about?
We are belatedly talking about the Sight and Sound Top 100 list.
I mean, Will had a very strong effect on it because he wrote his own list in there, but we riffed for 30 minutes. The Rock may make an appearance at some point.
Canonizing disrupting of the canon. We get into it all.
So you can check that out at patreon.com/important cinema club. Next week, what are we doing, Will?
Well, listen, folks.
We need clicks.
Yeah, you've been very patient with us as we talk about Yahoo Serious. We're going to go for another popular topic next time. It's that time in the rotation, you know? At a certain point, the old war wound starts acting up. You know, the wind comes from the northeast.
I keep refreshing the Gmail, being like, we haven't had Patreon subscribers in so long. What's going on?
And we have to think, okay, we need to do a popular topic. So we're going to be talking about Pixar.
Oh, Pixar, you may be saying. You know what that means.
The bad
Pixar.
The bad Pixar, folks. So we're going to be talking about The Good Dinosaur. What else?
Oh, Finding Dory. I haven't even seen that movie.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen The Good Dinosaur either. Brave. That's a very controversial one.
Fuck, I don't want to watch that one again. How about
Cars 3.
Cars 3. Was there a 3?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
He's a spy in this one, I think.
There was Cars 2, which I did see.
Yep, there is a Cars 3. I've never seen Cars 2.
Cars 2 is heavy on Larry the Cable Guy.
I vividly remember being at the New York Comic Book Con and sitting in on a panel with the directors of Up who showed us the first 30 minutes. And I remember leaving that convention and going, boy, Pixar have never missed.
And it looks like they
did.
missed.
Well, I mean, they sold themselves to Disney. John Lasseter, Real Sir hugs a lot, and a lot of stuff happened.
So we're going to be talking about Pixar.
Listen, you're going to click on it. You love Pixar. You want to see what
What
talking
do you
about.
need to hear me say? Pixar. You know what they are.
I mean, do you like any Pixar movies? Just give a taste to people.
Oh, sure. I like a lot of the Pixar movies, but I mean, I don't go see them anymore, really.
No, I don't. You didn't see Turning Red? That was good. Set in Toronto,
I have
too.
not seen Turning Red.
Oh, Turning Red. It was on Disney Plus. It was too easy to see.
I mean, thing is, I can watch any movie I want.
I mean, we could also watch the newest bad Pixar movie that was canonically made bad, Lightyear.
Oh, I have seen Lightyear.
You have seen Lightyear? Why?
We talked about it on Michael and Us because of the sort of like homophobic panic surrounding it.
Oh,
culture war
that's
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That was one of those Michael and Us for them episodes.
Yeah. Just as this is a for them episode too.
Yeah, the Yahoo Serious one.
Yeah.
We love that people love Yahoo Serious.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be doing next week. Until then, my name's Justin Clue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. It was recently brought to my attention that a listener to the Important Cinema Club, Felix Dembinski, just did a fan edit of a film. Are you a big fan of fan edits? Have you watched fan edits in the past?
I don't know if I have. I mean, I like the spirit of them. I'm for them.
Like, there's a community online that usually what they do is they edit blockbusters, like really popular films, and like make them better to the editor's tastes. And that can mean a lot of different things. Like, it could be like Silent Hill has a fan edit where they remove all of the present day Sean Bean scenes because those were actually imposed on the director by the studio.
Right. I mean, I know that there are some, like I haven't watched them, but I've seen like people have done a fan edit of like Batman Forever to make it look like more like the Tim Burton ones.
Oh, really? So they like color corrected it, maybe changed the music too?
Cut out a couple of scenes, added a couple other deleted scenes, you know.
There's like a Dune fan edit as well. Like, a lot of the time fan edits are incorporating deleted scenes that can be in like a bunch of different versions. But anyway, Felix Dembinski did something even cooler than that, which is he took the incomplete version of the Andy Milligan film House of Seven Bells. Andy Milligan, we did an episode on him. He was like a trash auteur from way back when.
I do want to explain, if people don't know
Go
who
ahead.
Andy Milligan was. He was a guy who lived in New York, worked in off Broadway theater. He was a very disgruntled and angry man, a gay man, which I point out because that heavily informs the aesthetics of his work.
Did not like his mother.
Really did not like his mother. And so all of his films have evil matriarch figures. And he never learned how to edit. He never learned how to block a shot. He never learned any craft of film.
His films are very immediate, if you will.
But I mean, they are powerful.
Yes.
They're very strange. And like watching his movies is like being in the head of a madman.
So Severin recently released a box set of all of his films, I think, except a couple.
I think Surgikill is not on there.
Yeah, or what is it? Is it The Weirdo?
The Weirdo and Monstrosity were both released on Blu-ray by another company, Garage House, I think.
And one of his films that was incomplete, House of Seven Bells, was uploaded by
Nicholas Winding Refn
Yes.
bought the uncompleted negative, and he released it on his website, basically just as a scan.
Yes.
And so it's uncompleted. Most of it was shot, but like there's no music or anything.
And I think like the beginning and ends of Reel still have like a little bit of black that played. So what Felix did, and boy, what a trooper he was to do this. He did the research watching Andy Milligan's films and found all of the library music that Andy Milligan used in those films.
Yeah, and the Andy Milligan movies are kind of amazing because like he would try to make movies when he was making horror movies, he would try to make movies that looked like Hammer horror films, you know, have all the 18th and 19th century regalia, you know, shot at castles and spooky stuff. Not actually shot at castles though, shot at like people's apartments, people's Staten Island homes, but they're supposed to look like Hammer horror movies. And they're also cast with like whatever off Broadway weirdos and rough trade he had picked up. So, you know, they're just like bizarre and strange assemblages of people. And then the music is library music from like the 40s, you know, stuff that you would hear in a Bela Lugosi movie.
Yeah, he just went to whatever library there was, like, give me all your library music. All right, here we go. Let's just drop it randomly on the movie. It doesn't really matter.
And so they're weird movies that feel kind of out of time. You know, they'll have a lot of these like 30s and 40s horror movie aesthetics, but with like weird New York 70s people in them.
So House of Seven Bells, it was tough to watch when there's no music because it's just kind of airless. And Felix just put music throughout it, like very carefully picking only Andy Milligan tracks and just putting it throughout the movie. So it feels like a finished movie, even though the ending is missing.
And so now it's hard to watch, but in a different way.
But what a heroic work to finish the movie in that way.
Yeah. Shouts out to him. I mean, that's very impressive.
And you can find it on YouTube as well, because that's where he put it. I mean,
let's put the link.
It'll be below if you look in just the description. There'll be the link to check that out.
And Nicholas Winding Refn, please don't take it down.
I really hope he doesn't.
Come on.
Let it live free. I mean, we didn't even talk about that Nicholas Winding Refn website, did we?
By NWR?
Yeah. Is it still up? Like
it is still up.
Trying something like really ambitious of like finding these film prints, scanning them, putting them out with essays in a website that was unreadable and just so difficult to navigate.
I think Nicholas Winding Refn has done some genuinely historic or heroic preservation work, you know, on some of these movies. I know for a while on Mubi, the streaming service Mubi, they would have like one of his movies every month, and you could watch like Chained Girls alongside, you know, whatever Henry Jaglom movies they had on Mubi that month.
I like that Nicholas Winding Refn was doing like the Tarantino thing, but like the deepest of deep cuts that like no one has heard of. Movies that he basically had to pull out of the garbage. I mean, he's the one who found The Astrologer, I believe.
Right.
Because he thought it was something else. And he's like, what the heck is this?
Which cannot be legally released.
No, but perhaps it is floating around online somewhere.
Yeah, folks, you should watch that one too, The Astrologer.
But getting back to fan edits, have you ever wanted something completed in that way? Like, not necessarily like find footage that, like Magnificent Emerson, it's not going to be completed because it doesn't exist.
Well, I think Touch of Evil, what they did in that in the 90s, where Orson Welles wrote this huge long memo to the studio saying, here's what you should do if you want to make this a good movie. Put this scene here, put this scene here, take the music out here, put the music in here, etc. They ignored it, but then in the 90s, they actually went back and re-edited the film to his specifications.
I'm a bigger fan of the preview version.
You like the preview version because it has the Henry Mancini music on the opening shot, right?
Sorry, that was a recent podcast that were talking about that, weren't they? Probably Joe Dante's podcast.
Oh, was it? I don't know. I like the revised
version. Yeah. I think those kind of heroic works are always like my favorite, where it could be done, but it just needs like a lot of, you know, willpower and time.
I was watching a little bit of Albert Pune's director's cut of Captain America the other day, which, you know, he like took some elements that he had and re-edited them and rearranged them, and like it
looks bad.
It looks bad, frankly, but it's kind of like if you squint really hard, you can kind of see what he was going for.
Well, there's a re-edit version of Cyborg that like mixes his work print with new footage. And what I say about that is turn it black and white. It makes it way easier on the eyes when they switch between both of them. But even that job is like a little sloppy. There's like weird fades in between shots instead of just like straight cuts. And it's like, what are you doing? Those fades just take me out of it.
One that I hear people praise a lot is this guy Ryan Swen did a re-edit of Black Hat, Michael Mann's Black Hat, to make it more of a director's cut. Have you heard about that?
Is it a re-edit of Black Hat, or is it the version that Michael Mann re-edited and played on FX?
I think it might be something else. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this because I'm not quite sure what it is that I'm talking about.
No, yeah. So Michael Mann the top fan editor of them all, in the sense that he will not stop editing his movies. And so he re-edited Black Hat, and it played on FX, and that's it. It's not been released anywhere else. And I believe he did do a fan edit because he re-edited like the best versions available to look like the version that played on FX. So that is technically a fan edit job and going that extra mile. So that's awesome. And I can't think of any other fan edits off the top of my head of like what I would want to see. Because the thing about fan edits most of the time is that like I want to see stuff that was compromised by an outside force return to the form, like Nightbreed. Technically, like the Cabal cut was the original version. But I don't want to see every deleted scene put in the movie. They're not meant to live there. Like,
that's right.
You get the longest movie, but that's not anything. So fan edits, when they're edited by like creatively to make them either like watchable, for example, this House of Seven Bells edit, or to return them to a form that they originally were supposed to be in, like Touch of Evil, those are the ones that interest me the most.
I'll tell you a fan edit that I would like to do, that I would like to see. So I just, when I was on the plane the other day, watched Singin' in the Rain.
Yes.
There are 2 scenes that I would like to cut from that movie.
Oh, no.
One of them is when it's Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds just on that empty set, and they're like singing a love song to each other. I think that's boring.
Okay.
And later, the big Broadway melody number. You know, that dream sequence number where it's like, and we're gonna add a scene to the picture. It'll be about a young Broadway hoofer and his adventures in the big
why don't
city.
you like that scene?
I mean, it's boring. The whole movie is this incredibly charming. It's very spontaneous. It's got this infectious quality of fun. And then there's this gigantic musical dream sequence thrown into it.
But isn't that every Gene Kelly movie though? Has that big musical?
And I don't love it. I don't love it anytime.
That's a controversial. You're like Steven Soderbergh. Oh man, how could I forget? Steven Soderbergh does his fan edits all the time. Have you seen those?
I've never seen them. I've just heard of them.
He's cut down 2001: A Space Odyssey to 90 minutes.
Oh man, I don't know.
Well, he did it for fun, and like I
That'd
just
be
wanted to see
interesting.
if I could do this and put it out. I think he did like a weird re-edit of Psycho as well.
Interesting. Did he cut out the scene at the end with the guy with the coroner?
He made it
whatever?
only that scene. It just plays for 10 minutes. Will be releasing his Singing in the Rain.
I'll be releasing my
cut.
better Singing in the Rain that doesn't have that whole Spruce Goose musical number. Like, okay, I just watched.
Did you enjoy musical numbers just for the sake of musical numbers?
Well,
I
sure.
don't remember this musical number.
Well, there you go. It's the biggest, most expensive musical number in the movie, but I bet you remember Donald O'Connor with the dummy.
course.
You know, make 'em
laugh.
Just a stupid scene where he's just like fucking around with a dummy. 10 times more charming than this big fucking Broadway melody number.